Hello, I'm Austin Jarrett from Allett Mowers, and today we're going to do a short tutorial on how to adjust the lawn rake. Some might call it the comb. This is a device which has a series of spring tines which is mounted just behind the front roller on some of our cylinder mowers. The models we fit this to are the Cambridge 43, the Sterlings, and all of the Kensington models. And it's important that you know how to adjust this to get the best results. The lawn rake is designed to have close spaced 1 centimetre tines which can be adjusted up and down so that it enters the canopy as you're mowing. It's mounted just behind the front roller, so the depth control is really accurate, and as the roller powers forward, it powers the tines through the grass. What this does is, because the grass plants are laid down in the direction of travel, it improves and makes the lawn stripes more contrasting. That's lighter green and darker green. It also helps as well with the weed grasses which lie down in the sward. It just combs and agitates them so they're more likely to stand up, so that we can mow those and keep those really short as well. So I want to talk about the best adjustment for this, and I'm going to use the Cambridge model because with it being battery powered, I can tip it on its side, and I'm hoping we can get some really good shots to make it clear on how to set the rake and also to set it to the correct height. The tools that I've got here, I'm going to show you a combination of tools. I've got a digital height of cut setting tool. I've got a conventional height of cut bar. I've also just got an ordinary straight edge which you can probably find in your garage, and of course a tape measure. The only tool that I need to adjust the lawn rake is a 13mm spanner. So we've tipped this Cambridge model on its side and put the camera so that we're looking exactly at the side plate. And what we have here is the rear roller, the bottom blade, the cylinder blades, the lawn rake, and then the front roller. And this is the adjustment that we're looking at to do to lift the lawn rake lower and higher. So if I put a straight edge here, which in its simplest format, as long as you've got something that's reasonably straight, you will see, if I get this tape measure, these are the measurements that we're normally taking in terms of the height of cut from the top of the blade to the top of that bar, and I can see what the height of cut is. And then I can also measure here what is the depth that I'm getting on the lawn rake. So the first thing we need to decide is what our height of cut's going to be, and then we can set the height of cut. I've got several ways to achieve that. The most sophisticated way is to actually use one of these, which is a digital height gauge. So this uses the digital gauge here in this readout, and you can see I'm going to put this on top of the bottom blade cutting edge. So first thing I need to do is to create a 0. I can press the 0 here, which will take me to 0. And then when I place this on the rear roller and the front roller, I'm then able to take the gauge, place that over the bottom blade, and that gives me a very precise height of cut reading, and I've got that at about 18.6 at this moment. What I can do is I'm going to adjust the height of cut, so I've got it really accurate at 19mm, something like that. And you can see what the gauge is reading here, actually it's reading roughly 20 millimeters, so it's not too far out. So these are really useful. The other alternative way of doing this is to get a height setting bar. The height setting bar looks like this. And what I do is I measure the distance from under the head of the bolt to the top of the bar. And I know that I've set this to about 19 millimeters, so if I set this now, at roughly 19 millimeters, screw that in a bit more. And then once I've set that, I just lock this off. And then what I should find is when I put this on here, that the head of the bolt here just about fits underneath. It doesn't quite do that. So you can see now that the head of the bolt is right on top of the bottom blade, and the front roller and the rear roller. So if I measure that now, it's a slightly less accurate method. That's showing me about 19.5 millimeters by this method. The best place for the lawn rake to be is to rake into the sward by about 2 to maximum 5 millimeters. The 5 millimeters will be when you're mowing higher, say at 25 millimeters high, height of cut. And if you're mowing really low, then you're going to be maximum 2 millimeters in. So that means that if my height of cut is 19 millimeters here, then I would expect to measure from the top of this bar to the bottom of the tine to be 17 millimeters if I was just going to rake into the sward by 2 millimeters, or this measurement here would be 14 millimeters if I was raking in 5 millimeters into the cut grass. So remember that the grass is longer, so by the time the grass is uncut by the time it reaches here, so your grass is considerably longer than that and will be raked more. The rake isn't penetrating the sward by that number of millimeters because the grass is actually longer than after it's been cut. So this is my next task then, is to now set the rake. First, I need to, on both sides, undo the rake adjustment. And once I've undone that, you'll see there's an elongated slot, and that allows this rake to go up and down in the slot. I'm going to set it up higher. I need more hands than I've got, but what I'm then going to be able to do is, if I'm going to set this to the point of the rake here, I'm presently set at 22 millimeters, and I'm going to now just reduce that down a bit. And I want to be measuring 17 millimeters here. So I'm going too far, all up or all down. And now I'm at 18 millimeters. I'm at 20 millimeters. I think I'm going the wrong way here. $19 millimeters. And now I'm at 17 millimeters. So that is now going to penetrate the sward 2 millimeters deeper than my height of cut. Once I've done that and set that up, I need to hold the rake in position, and then on both the left hand side and the right hand side, I need to tighten up this position. I might also note that actually there's a small amount of the elongated hole that is showing, and that's quite a good indicator to remember for next time where roughly I need to be. So once I've done that on both sides, I then know that I have 19mm height of cut. I have this set at 17mm, this gap here where my finger is between the rake and the straight edge. So I'm penetrating the canopy 2mm below where the final height of cut is. If I change my height of cut, i.e. I lift and lower the roller, then I do also need to just revisit and check where the rake is. So getting the depth of the lawn rake or the comb correct is really important. If it's too high, then it doesn't do any raking and doesn't help us with our contrasting stripes or getting the weedgrass leaves. If it's too deep though, that also creates problems. So I like to look at it that once I've set the rake, I should be able to push the mower along easily. And I've deliberately set the rake on this one, and I've put the wheel kit on and removed the front roller so you can see what's happening. That if it's too deep, actually, if I can't push the mower along because the tines are too deep, then I've set it far too deep. And if I come to use the mower, I'm going to put the mower into drive and you can see what happens. You can hear the motors really straining as it pushes the rake through. So what does that mean? I'm going too deep. I maybe should be scarifying instead if I want to try and create that sort of effect. I could scarify first before I mow to get a more aggressive effect. But on an electric or a petrol mower, then I'm just using loads of energy. So my battery is going to go flat quicker, or I'm going to be using more fuel than I really need to use by having the rake set too deep. Also, because the roller's got a differential and it's smooth, then what can also happen is the rear rollers actually start slipping and skidding on the ground just because it can't push the rake along, which also really isn't very good. So make sure that we're not doing that, because it does also overload the rear roller drive system, and that really isn't so good, and overload the electrical system as well, so that we could cause overheating. So we don't want to do that either, so please just be sensible about how deep you go with setting on the lawn rake. So enjoy the benefits of that. Remember, if the grass is really long, you can easily remove that lawn rake as well, so you don't even need to have it on at all. In the autumn time, when there are leaves falling on the lawn, then the lawn rake does actually start to collect and bulldoze the leaves rather than letting them come through and be collected. So at those times of year, you might also take that off as well. And if you're mowing low and worm caster on the surface, then it does also help to agitate those as well. So there are many uses for it. It really is a really wonderful enhancement to the mower and gives you these extra results, but I just give you those words of warning. So I hope that helps on how to set the lawn rake and what depth to set it at. Thanks very much for watching.